All right, everybody, you're listening to the Touch 'em Up podcast. I'm your host, Double M, and on today's episode, we have UFC Vegas 99, Hernandez versus Pereira from the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. This upcoming Saturday night with a middleweight main event between Fluffy Hernandez, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, taking on Michel Demolidor Pereira. You have the number 14 ranked middleweight taking on the number 13 ranked middleweight to see who can crack into the top 10. Then in the co-main event of the evening, you have a battle between the number 10 ranked New England Cartel member in Rob Font taking on the number 12 ranked up-and-coming contender coming off of a dominant decision win over Pedro Munoz in Kyler Kai Matrix Phillips. So without any further ado, let's get this started and step into the ring. All right, everybody, we're back. I will link my Dana White Contender Series predictions in the description below. I have my predictions out for this week of the Contender Series, the 10th and final week. Currently riding a 72% accuracy rate through 10 weeks, and I'd like to keep that accuracy up and up. Keep it going on the up and up, I should say. I'm not going to break down every fight. If you've listened to my podcast before, you know how we do it. We don't break down every fight. We don't spend time on fights that really realistically don't matter too much. And the first fight we're going to break down is going to be the second to last fight on the prelims in the bantamweight division between Brad Katona and Gene Matsumoto. I like Matsumoto a lot here. I think he doesn't have the UFC experience of a Katona, but he's the much more dangerous fighter than a Brad Katona. You know, I think the best performance of Katona's career was a fight where he looked really good, but it was a very competitive fight, and that was in the Ultimate Fighter finale against Cody Gibson. That was back and forth. That was balls to the wall. You know, both guys coming forward, throwing combinations. Katona was staying in the fire. Katona was coming back with boxing combinations of his own. But Katona is, you know, a tri-star guy. He fights with that, you know, touch and go style. Very intelligent fighter, but it makes for a lackluster performance. Now, he lost in Canada against Garrett Armfield. That was a spot where we played the underdog in Armfield. We knew he was the better striker. We knew he had pretty good takedown defense, and he was piecing up Katona on the feet until he got tired, and Katona almost got him out of there in that third round, but he was able to come back and win a split decision. I think it was actually unanimous, but again, I could be wrong. Katona has good boxing. He finishes his combinations with some decent low kicks, uses a jab, uses a 1-2, but a lot of the time he's using his striking as a means to an end to get on the inside and get takedowns. And the one thing about Gene Matsumoto is this guy is much more dangerous on the feet. He's much cleaner, much crisper on the feet. He has much better kickboxing. He's a black belt in Muay Thai, I believe, along with a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So anywhere that a guy like Katona can take this fight, Matsumoto probably has him covered. The only way I see him winning this fight is by controlling Matsumoto up against the cage, holding him there in the over-under, getting to the double unders, landing knees to the thigh, trying to work dirty boxing, elbows, uppercuts, knees inside the clinch. But Matsumoto can hang in there, man. Like against Dan Argueta, he got taken down a bunch, but he was able to work his way back up to the feet. He was able to use some sweeps. He was able to get a takedown of his own. And I think Argueta is a much higher level wrestler than a Brad Katona. I think Katona is a more well-rounded fighter than a guy like Dan Argueta. He's a little bit more comfortable on the feet. He doesn't mind putting his strikes together. He doesn't mind putting numbers together. But Katona is a guy that doesn't realistically throw a ton of volume. He's very methodical. He's very patient, and he finds his openings. But against a guy who's patient, methodical, but also dangerous and has, you know, very crisp striking, very clean combos, finishes his combinations with low kicks, switches stances, can throw head kicks, has good takedowns of his own, has good defensive grappling, and will threaten with submissions. This is a Gene Matsumoto play all day. Now, the question is, does Matsumoto win via finish, or does Matsumoto win via decision? Katona's durable. I think if there is a fight where Katona could be finished, it probably is against a guy like Matsumoto, who not only has the striking covered with more power and better technique, but also has the grappling covered to where if he hurts a guy like Katona, he could potentially wrap his neck up kind of like he did against Argueta. So I do think there is a chance for an inside the distance play with Gene Matsumoto. He's got a pretty high money line, minus 270, minus 280. I like Matsumoto here. I think he gets it done. I'm going to go with Matsumoto by a third-round TKO. I think he's going to kind of break down Katona, maybe late second round, early third round. I think he will find a finish. Eventually, this guy Katona is going to get finished. He gets hit a lot. His defense isn't the greatest, but he just knows how to stay in a fight. I think he might stay in there till the third round until eventually the striking is just too much, and he starts getting countered. Those head kicks, those low kicks, those body kicks, and he starts putting those combinations together, punctuating his boxing with his kickboxing, and I think Matsumoto's going to get Katona out of there. Would I be surprised if it goes to a decision? No, but I'm going to go Gene Matsumoto, third-round TKO over Brad Katona. I like him a lot here. I think this kid's legit, and I think he has a lot to offer the UFC in this division. Up next, we have a fight to cap off the prelims in the flyweight division. A pretty solid one, too, with Mateus Nicolau taking on Asu Almabayev. I think that this one is going to be a competitive fight. I know a bunch of people are going to jump on the favorite in Asu Almabayev and just think that it's kind of going to be a walk in the park. Now, based off the odds here, it says that Almabayev's only a minus 170. I'm pretty surprised by that because I'm pretty sure a lot of people are off the Nicolau train after his performance against Alex Perez. You know, he got knocked out by Alex Perez. That was a fight where we predicted Nicolau to get KO'd by Perez. We've seen Nicolau get knocked out by Brandon Royval, but look what Royval just did to Tyra. I think that this is a fight where the side probably is going to be Almabayev, but the fighter who's faced better competition is a guy like Nicolau. I think Nicolau is the better boxer. He moves better on the feet, moves in and out, moves laterally. But it's going to be a question of the takedown defense of Mateus Nicolau against a grappler like Almabayev. And if you look at the takedown defense, excuse me, if you look at the takedown defense of Nicolau, he's got a 93% takedown defense. This guy is not easy to take down. But I also think that Almabayev can use his grappling to win, kind of like Mario Bautista did against Jose Aldo, where maybe he doesn't get the actual takedowns, but he uses the takedown entries, the over-under positions in the clinch to win this fight, and win the grappling exchanges and kind of hold Nicolau up against the cage. Now, that really depends on how the judges are going to score those grappling positions because they seem to mean a lot less at this point than they did before. But if it's mainly a striking matchup, I definitely believe Nicolau to be the better striker. I think he uses his range better. I think he uses his reach better. Even though he only has a 1-inch reach advantage, he knows how to use that jab very well. He knows how to draw the opponent in and come up the middle with a right uppercut, left hook, jab, check left hook, right hand, a 1-2 down the middle, good jab to the body. He's got very crisp and clean boxing, and he does look good defensively on the feet. Now, mind you, I said looks good, but if you do start to get on the inside, if you do start to clip him, he does have durability concerns. I mean, we know that. We know that with Nicolau. He got knocked out with that knee up the middle with Brandon Royval, and he also got finished by Alex Perez when Perez was a decent-sized underdog, but Perez by knockout was like 9 or 10 to 1. And the minute he started landing on the chin of Nicolau, the fight was basically over. We know that Almabayev isn't known for his striking. I do think he can be competitive with Nicolau, but if he really wants to win, it has to be a case of getting on the inside, using the over-unders, getting to the body lock and pushing Nicolau up against the cage. Get that lactic acid in there. It's not going to be easy to get the takedowns. Like I said, over a 90% takedown defense rate, but using those positions like a Mario Bautista, using the over-under positions, using the knees to the thigh, using different exchanges, you know, that's the type of way he's going to have to use his grappling to beat Nicolau. I think this fight's going to be competitive. I think Nicolau's getting overlooked a little bit because I think they kind of overblow the skill set of an Almabayev. I think Almabayev's good, but I think if he can't use his grappling as much as he'd like to, then the fights get a lot more competitive. And when it comes to this fight, I do think Almabayev's going to win, but I'm going to go 29-28 split decision. I think this fight has split decision written all over it, based solely on the takedown defense of Nicolau, along with the fact that I believe him to be the much cleaner and more technical striker at distance. So I'm going to go Almabayev by split decision, but I don't think Nicolau's a bad bet because I think he can outstrike Almabayev on the feet and defend the takedowns. But I'm going to go Almabayev 29-28 split decision. All right, up next, a featherweight bout between Darren the Damage Elkins and Daniel the Pit Pineda. This is an interesting one because I don't think Elkins should be fighting in the UFC anymore. I think he's taken a lot of damage, but that's his nickname. I mean, Darren the Damage Elkins, right? So we know that that's the way he's going to fight. It's very hard to get a guy like Elkins out of there. If anybody can do it, I think it probably is a guy like Pineda, but we know Pineda will get tired. He will gas out. And if you get a grappling heavy style against a guy like Pineda, that's going to get that lactic acid in the muscles, and that's going to tire him out. And I think Elkins is very live for a round 2, round 3 finish, late second round, third round finish. I think Elkins is very live here. I think Pineda can piece him up on the feet. I think he's got much better boxing. I think he's got a lot more power. He could hurt Elkins and potentially grab up his neck and submit him. But Elkins is a guy that you're not really going to finish by a submission. I mean, let's look at all of his fights and pull it up for you real quick. Hold on. Darren Elkins, 28 wins, 11 losses. Out of his 11 losses, he's only been submitted 1 time. He's lost by TKO 4 times. I don't think Pineda has the gas tank to last with a guy like Elkins over 15 minutes. I don't think he gets a submission because he only has 1 submission loss, does Elkins. If there is a guy that could submit him, though, I think it probably is a guy with the jiu-jitsu pedigree of a Pineda. Pineda's going to be a lot stronger with his boxing on the feet. He's going to be the much better striker. I think he has better jiu-jitsu, but I think the pace, pressure, and wrestling of Elkins, it could easily break down a guy like Pineda, just like it kind of did in the fight with Nathaniel Wood, even though Wood is a much better striker than Darren Elkins. I think this fight is pretty close because both of these guys are kind of hot and cold fighters. They win some, they lose some, they're back and forth. But I actually think this fight finishes inside the distance because I don't like the cardio of Pineda past the midpoint of the second round and into the third. And I think that the defensive boxing and defensive striking of Elkins is so trash that he might get knocked out and TKO'd in the first 2 rounds just based on how much damage that he's taken. So my favorite bet, if I'm betting the fight, would be the under 2.5. But from an actual pick perspective, it's actually kind of hard because originally I wanted to pick Pineda. I think he's got much better power in his hands. I think he's much faster with his striking. I think he's got better defensive striking. He has good jiu-jitsu to where if Elkins shoots a takedown, he might be able to grab the neck and submit him with a guillotine. But Elkins has also only ever been submitted 1 time out of all his losses, so that's not necessarily going to be the best path to victory for a guy like Pineda, who likes to use his grappling and likes to use his positional awareness to win these fights. And Elkins can still scramble with the best of them, no matter how many wars that he's been in. It's kind of a coin flip for me. I don't really know who I want to pick. Like 100%, I'm very torn on this one because I see an easy path to victory early for Pineda and an easy path to victory late for Darren Elkins. It's going to be a tale of 2 fights. Early, it's all Pineda. Late, midpoint of the second into the third round, it's all Darren Elkins. I'm going to take Darren Elkins. I don't want to. I think Pineda should win. Man, let me think on this, really. Let me think. Oh, man, this is tough. Give me Darren Elkins. Like I said, I don't want to take him. I could see Pineda winning by knockout. I could see Pineda ground and pounding him. But I don't like the cardio of Pineda, and I know that Elkins is going to have the cardio to push. Give me Darren Elkins, second round ground and pound TKO. I think he's going to get him out of there. I think he's going to push a higher pace and slow down the much bigger, more bully type of fighter in Daniel Pineda. So give me Darren Elkins, late second round ground and pound TKO. All right, the next fight up is in the bantamweight division with a banger, a very solid and competitive fight between Brady Hiestand taking on Jake Hadley. Hadley moved up to the bantamweight division on short notice, took on Cowlin Loughran, and looked very good in doing so, winning that fight via decision, but just clearly outboxing and outstriking a guy in Loughran, who I was never very high on, but for some reason I switched my pick from Hadley to Loughran, thinking that he was going to be too powerful, too big for him, but he was just too slow, and the speed of Hadley, along with the footwork and movement, gave Loughran a lot of trouble, and I think that's a pretty impressive win for Hadley, even though I don't rate Loughran that high. High stand or he stand is coming off of that submission victory over Garrett Armfield. I'm high on Armfield. I picked Armfield to beat Brad Katona. I picked Armfield to win via second round knockout over Brady Heastand. He almost got it. It was very, very close to a TKO. And he almost got a submission in the first round trying to lock up an armbar. The defensive striking of Heastand is not great. He gets hit a lot. He can be dropped. He can be rocked. He can be wobbled. But this guy never stops pushing forward. Even if you hurt him, even if you rock him, even if you hit him with the kitchen sink, he's going to continue to push forward. He's going to continue to push that wrestling pace, and he is going to try to break you down. Now, I like that against the smaller fighter in Jake Hadley, who I think would have trouble with the forward pressure and wrestling of Heastand, but I also know how good the jiu-jitsu of Jake Hadley is, and I would not be surprised if Heastand over-wrestled and got his neck caught in a guillotine, got caught in a triangle choke when he was on top, got caught with an armbar from guard when Heastand was on top. But I like Heastand's ability to keep his weight low, keep his head on the chest of a guy when he has them on the ground, not really posture up, just kind of breaking them down with little hammer fists, little ground and pound, looking to change positions, looking to lock up submissions. I think the better jiu-jitsu artist in this fight is Jake Hadley. He goes for subs. He doesn't mind going for arm bars. He doesn't mind going for guillotines. He doesn't mind going for triangle chokes. Like, he's going to look for submissions. But I think that the grappling and wrestling is a lot higher level on the side of Heastand. I would say that the faster, more effective striker is Hadley, but the forward pressure and with Hadley being on the back foot, it might draw out shots that Hadley doesn't really want to throw, and it's going to open up counter takedowns for a guy like Brady Heastand. In this fight, honestly, I like Heastand. I worry a little bit about his durability, not so much in terms of him getting finished, but in terms of him getting rocked and then maybe falling into a front headlock position where Hadley can lock up a guillotine, maybe falling into a bad position where Hadley can spin, take the back, and lock up a rear naked choke. But I've seen him get rocked, wobbled, and come back, look to wrestle, look to push the pace, and continue to move forward after getting dropped pretty bad against Armfield. And I think Armfield is a much harder hitter, a much more powerful puncher than a guy like Hadley. So that's pushing me towards the side of Brady Heastand. I like Heastand to use his forward pressure, use his grappling, push Hadley against the fence, get those takedowns, defend the submissions, and just kind of break down Jake Hadley over 15 minutes. I'm going to go Brady Heastand to win via a third round submission. I think he gets a rear naked choke. Could be a ground and pound TKO. I think he will slow down Hadley, break him down. I think Hadley might be able to get out of the second round, but the pressure, the wrestling, the ground control, the hammer fist, the ground and pound, I think that's all going to add up to eventually just, an attritional finish, kind of breaking him down, slow cooking Jake Hadley, and leading to a late finish for Brady Heastand. Give me Brady Heastand to win via a third round rear naked choke submission. Like I said, it could be a back mount TKO. If I'm going to bet on a guy like Hadley, I would look at round 2, round 3 sub. Because of the heavy wrestling pace of Heastand, he could leave himself in a guillotine. He could get hurt with a shot on the feet, panic wrestling, get locked up in a guillotine. I think if Hadley wins by submission, it most likely would be a front choke, a guillotine choke, a Darce choke, potentially a ninja choke. But I also saw Hadley get dropped by Charles Johnson, and I think Johnson hits pretty hard, but I don't think he's really a knockout artist, so that does worry me a little bit. So I got to go Brady Heastand. Give me Brady Heastand, third round rear naked choke submission. Like I said, could be late second round, but I'm on the side of Brady Heastand in this fight. All right, next up, we got a battle in the flyweight division between the streaking Charles Energy Johnson taking on Su Mudaerji. This fight is closer than the odds entail, and they actually have identical records, 16-6 on both sides. Mudaerji is going to have the more powerful punches, the better boxing, the better overall striking in terms of finishing ability. But I think the more well-rounded fighter in this fight is Charles Johnson. I think he can use his grappling. I think he can use wrestling. I think he has good defensive wrestling. He can threaten with submissions, potentially a guillotine, potentially a Darce choke, an anaconda choke. He loves chokes from that front headlock position, and I think that is something that's live here against Su Mudaerji, where he might rock him, stun him, and then that might allow him to get a submission victory. I would not be surprised if Charles Johnson won this fight via submission. I picked against Johnson in his last fight against Joshua Van. And he was getting pieced up. He came back. He looked good. I think he won the first round, lost the second round to Van, and then in the third round came out, hit him with a right hook from southpaw, switched back to orthodox, and then came right up the middle with the same side with an uppercut and knocked out Joshua Van early in round 3. Now, Johnson, if he gets finishes, he is a guy who's going to get it late towards that end of the second round, into the third round. That's where a guy like Johnson's going to win this fight. Mudarji's dangerous. I think if they get into a pure striking match, that Mudarji's going to make it close. And we saw Charles Johnson get rocked by that guy he fought. Who did he fight? Hold on. That guy he fought recently who was undefeated or like 17-1. Azat Maxim? Yeah. He got rocked by Maxim early. Almost got subbed. And then Johnson came back and ended up winning 2 out of the 3 rounds via unanimous decision. He then comes in again as an underdog against Jake Hadley. He drops Jake Hadley in round 2. Hurts Jake Hadley in round 2. Wins that fight via unanimous decision. Outstriking Jake Hadley. I think he got a takedown in there. Hadley was able to take his back and control it. And then he goes into the fight against Joshua Van, and he wins that fight via a knockout in the third round. Like I said, switch stance, right hook, switch back to orthodox, right uppercut, right up the middle. He's a very good striker, but he's a guy who builds as the fight goes on. The only problem that Johnson has had historically is that he makes fights very close. It's a point fighting style. He knows how to switch stances. He's good defensively. He moves very well. He uses his jab, good 1-2, decent front kicks from the lead and rear leg to the body. And when he smells blood, he will go for it, but he makes fights close. And I think Mudarji is a guy where he can come back with good combinations. He can hurt Charles Johnson. We've seen Charles Johnson get hurt. We've seen him get rocked. And I would not be surprised if Mudarji clipped him and hurt him with a big shot and put him down. Mudarji, though, is a guy where if it starts to not go his way, he can't seem to come back from it. And I know Johnson can come back from adversity and push forward to continue to win fights. I think Johnson gets the job done here. I think Johnson wins by a finish. I'm going to go Charles Johnson. Third round TKO against Mudarji. I think he's going to eventually just hurt him, piece him up, pick it up, continue to slow cook him over that 15 minutes, and then just put a big combination on him in round 3 and put him down. I wouldn't be surprised if it was late round 2, but I do think that we're going to see Johnson get a finish here via TKO. Like I said, when the stuff isn't going in the way of Mudarji, I think he will break the later that the fight goes. So give me Charles Energy Johnson to win this fight via a third round TKO over Mudarji. Maybe second round. I think it's potentially could be late second round, but I'm going to stick with third round. Give me Charles Energy Johnson to continue his hot streak and win via third round TKO over Mudarji. Now we're at the co-main event of the evening in the bantamweight division. You have a battle between Rob Font and Kyler Kai Matrix Phillips. Honestly, this fight pains me to break down because I'm one of the biggest Rob Font fans there are, man. I mean, I picked him to beat Cody Garbrandt. I picked him to beat Marlon Moraes. I picked him to beat Adrian Yanez. But I picked him against Aldo. It didn't work out. And he got out-grappled by Corey Sandhagen. And, man, I think Kyler Phillips is a terrible matchup for Rob Font. I really do. I know we haven't seen Font get TKO'd yet, but we've seen him get dropped multiple times by Marlon Vera. We saw him get hurt in the fight with Jose Aldo and dropped. And honestly, in this one, man, I think Kyler Phillips is going to piece him up. Not only can he strike, not only is he better on the outside with his kicking game, the kicks to the body, the head kicks, the spinning kicks, knees up the middle, uppercuts. He has good wrestling as well. I don't think we're going to see Font try to use his grappling to slow down Kyler Phillips either, man. I think the jab of Font is going to be hard for Kyler to time, but with the footwork and the movement and the in and out movement, it's going to be very hard for Font to be able to establish the timing of the jab based on the rhythm of Kyler Phillips, man. And I really think this is a Kyler Phillips spot. Again, it pains me to say it because I'm a huge Font fan. I'd like to see him win, get back on track. But I think this is one of the worst matchups you could give a guy like Font at this point in his career. And I think the speed, the variety, the creativity, the fact that Phillips can wrestle, and we know that the takedown defense of Font isn't great. He mainly stuffs takedowns and uses takedowns as like a means to an end to showcase his jiu-jitsu. It's more defensive jiu-jitsu than defensive wrestling, and I don't see Kyler Phillips getting stuck in a position where Font would be able to use some of his jiu-jitsu, and I think Kyler Phillips has good enough fight IQ to be able to avoid that unless he's on top in a dominant position with a lot of pressure after getting a takedown. But I think the speed, the creativity, the variety of Kyler Phillips on the feet with his striking, like I said, spinning back fists, switch kicks to the head, spinning back kicks, really good kicks to the body, a really solid 1-2 right down the middle. He's got a good jab cross. He uses his jab well. He's always moving on the outside. I think this is a terrible fight for Font. I'm going to go Kyler Phillips by TKO. I know Font's durable. I know Font has showcased his durability, but he's been dropped and rocked and somehow found a way to survive. I think eventually everybody who's really good at surviving and finding a way to remain in fights will kind of break down. And eventually they won't be able to rely on that durability and won't be able to rely on their, defensive skills and chin for much longer. And I think this is the fight where we see the chin of Rob Font go out. I'm going to go Kyler Phillips by TKO. I think he gets a second-round TKO. He's going to catch Rob with a spinning head kick or like a wheel kick, or, even just catching him with a 1-2 down the middle, sitting him down, and then following up with some ground and pound. I'm going to go Kyler Phillips, Kai Matrix, to get the job done via second-round TKO over Rob Font. I think this is the fight where we see Font get put down and he's not able to survive and make it the full distance. So, yeah, I like Kyler Phillips, second-round TKO. It pains me to say I love Font. I rarely ever pick against him, but I just can't pick him in this one, man. I think Phillips is too young. He's too crisp. He's too fast. He's too clean. And he has much more variety than the mainly boxing style of an Adrian Yanez, who was the last guy that Font was able to beat. So give me Kyler Phillips, second-round TKO over Rob Font. And now we're at the main event, a really good main event in the middleweight division between Anthony Fluffy Hernandez taking on Michel Pereira. This is a really good fight, man, and I've said that about a lot of fights. I usually say it's a very interesting fight. It's a very good fight. But this is what a fight night main event should be. Two guys that match up very well. You've got a grappler and a pressure fighter versus an explosive showman of a striker. Pereira being the striker, Hernandez being the forward pressure-based grappler. Now, what do we know about Fluffy Hernandez? We know that he is going to build in a fight. He's usually not going to look the best in the beginning or middle of round one, but he's going to start to push you back. He's going to keep his guard high. He's going to take some shots, but eventually he's going to break you. He's going to slow cook you. He's going to start getting forward. He's going to start landing his combinations. He's going to start pushing you up against the fence. He's going to start going for takedowns. Now, the only time we've ever seen Fluffy Hernandez get finished in the UFC, at least in relevancy to this matchup, is against Kevin Holland, where he got blitzed in the first round. He got hit with knees to the body. He got hit with elbows, and Holland put him down. If anybody in the UFC can do that again to a guy like Fluffy, it is a guy like Michel Pereira. He's going to come forward. He's going to look to land that big 1-2. He's going to go for flying knees, going to go for wheel kicks, going to go for big shots, big fight-ending shots, big crowd, pleasing moments in the fight. And when it gets into the second round, midpoint of the second round, into the third, that's when it's all Fluffy Hernandez. I would say if you're going to pick Michel Pereira, it's Pereira round one, round two, because that's just the way that this guy fights. Now, he's been beating guys like Andre Petroski, who can't take a punch. He's been knocking out guys like Ihor Potieria, who we saw last with Cesar Almeida, but he didn't look that great in that fight. Almost got submitted with a guillotine by the kickboxer in Almeida. And when you look at this fight, realistically, I think that there is a chance that Pereira comes out hot, moving around left and right, moving laterally, moving in and out, and explodes on Fluffy, rips to the body, hurts him to the body, hurts him up top to the head, and he finishes him. I think round one, round two finish for Pereira is definitely live, but I'm on the side of Fluffy here. I think Fluffy is going to be able to survive early. I think if Fluffy gets a takedown, I do not think Pereira is going to get back up. I think he might be able to stall for a little bit, but Fluffy is active. He's pushing forward. He's going for takedowns. You stuff one, he's going with another. He's going for an arm triangle. He's going for an arm in guillotine. He's going for an arm triangle. He's constantly fishing for that arm in guillotine from the far side. That is his number one submission. He submitted the multiple-time world champion and black belt in jiu-jitsu in Rodolfo Vieira with that exact move. And he's done it to so many guys before. Now, there have been guys who have gone the distance, but he doesn't mind winding up in the top position and just bombing away on you with elbows, hammer fists, and vicious ground and pound if he just ends up on top, but he can't get the sub. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Kopylov fight, where Kopylov landed some big kicks to the body, pushed back Fluffy, looked like he was going to finish him. Fluffy stayed in it. Fluffy pushed him back. Fluffy started landing kicks of his own, landing 1-2s down the middle. Fluffy has a good high guard, but he leaves his body open. And I think Pereira is a guy who's going to attack that body with that front kick, going to attack it with that knee up the middle. I think if Pereira hurts Hernandez, it's probably going to be like a front snap kick to the body or a knee to the body as he closes the distance. It would not surprise me one bit if Pereira won this fight by first or second round knockout. But I think the pace, the pressure, the calmness of Hernandez and his grappling ability is going to win him this fight. Now, I don't think it's going to be in round 2. I think if it is a finish, it's Hernandez sub round 3, round 4. But again, you can't be super confident that it's going to be a submission because he can go for that ground and pound. He can land elbows. He can land hammer fists. And he was going for multiple submissions against Edmund Shabazian, and then he eventually just finished off with the ground and pound elbows. I could see a similar situation here with Pereira. It's just he has to weather a huge, nasty storm in those first 2 rounds. But once we get past that midpoint of the second round, if Fluffy's still there, if Fluffy's moving forward, pumping out the jab, throwing the 1-2, Pereira's getting closer to the cage, he's not moving as well, he's not moving as well laterally, then I think that becomes the Fluffy Hernandez show, and we see him do to Pereira what we've seen him do to so many fighters before. Give me Fluffy, give me Anthony Fluffy Hernandez to win round 3 rear naked choke submission. I think he's going to find a way to finish Pereira, survive early, push him back, land some combos, get takedowns, continue to wear on Pereira, land ground and pound, and eventually take his back and lock up that rear naked choke. We're going Anthony Fluffy Hernandez to win via round 3 rear naked choke submission in the main event of UFC Vegas 99. All right, that's it for my UFC Vegas 99 preview, predictions, and breakdown. You can get this podcast on my YouTube channel, which is the Touch 'Em Up podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and smash the notification bell with a downward elbow from the rear side into a spinning back elbow. I'm your host, Double M. Let's make some money at UFC Vegas 99, and I'm out.